Hi, welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm starting a new series on cake decorating, and in this video I will be showing you how to decorate a simple cake. I will be making a range of fillings like royal icing, ganache, chocolate icing and buttercream icing. To make royal icing, I have 100 grams of icing sugar, also known as sugar powder, crack the egg and gently remove the egg white, moving the yolk from half of the shell to the other one. Put away the yolk. I've got the white. Add a tablespoon of the egg white into the icing sugar. Using the back of a spoon, mix the royal icing, that's the icing sugar and the egg white, until you have a nice smooth consistency. There are different type of royal icing. You can have the soft peak one and the firm one. I'm going to use this icing to write the name of the celebrant on the cake. So all I want to achieve is a soft one that can be easily piped. To check the consistency, your royal icing should be having like a smooth, not able to fall off the spoon, but a soft peak like that. You can adjust the consistency by adding in more of the egg white if you need to. To make ganache, I've got the milk chocolate, that's the cookie one, and I have some cream. Ganache was actually discovered by accident in a kitchen when somebody accidentally dropped some cream into already prepared chocolate. To make the ganache, break the chocolate, cooking chocolate into small pieces. Melt the chocolate over some steam, or you can melt the chocolate in a microwave following the instructions on your packet. Mine says 1 minute, so I'm going to place it in the microwave to melt for 1 minute. Cool the chocolate down and add the cream into the chocolate. Mix using a spoon the two together in the fridge to rest and set for about 10 minutes. To make butter icing, also known as buttercream, you use 100% of icing sugar and 50% margarine or butter. It's actually butter icing, so you should, if you are doing it for commercial purposes, you should be using butter. So you can use at home, you can use cake margarine or any fat of your choice, but for this purpose I'm using butter, and I have 50 grams of butter and 100 grams of sugar icing. I'm placing the two together, and I'm going to use the wooden spoon to cream the sugar and the butter together. So creaming just means mixing in one direction until you have a nice and fluffy batter. Add about a tablespoon of milk to the butter icing and keep mixing. I'm doing this by hand because I have just small quantity for the purpose of the video. If you are making a large quantity of buttercream, the best way is to use a hand whisk mixer or a proper mixer to do it, because this takes about 20 minutes of just constant moving around in the bowl until you achieve the fluffy consistency. Just keep moving in one direction to incorporate the air into the butter and the icing mix. You want your buttercream to be nice and fluffy. Adding a teaspoon of vanilla to the butter icing for some flavors. To decorate the cake, I have a sponge cake about 8 inches. This was prepared by my niece. That's her very first cake, following the recipe in our book and online training. So I have that 8-inch sponge cake. I've got some ganache, that's chocolate with cream. I have some jam. You can use apricot jam, strawberry jam, or any jam of your choice. I have butter icing that I prepared earlier. I have some royal icing for the writing on top of the cake, or for piping around it as well if you want. I have fondant icing. This is ready-made. You can make yours by just mixing some icing sugar, a little bit of glucose, and egg white to thicken it. You mold it into a ball, and that's what you get, a sugar paste, or otherwise known as fondant icing. I have the cake stand. I have some food paste colors. I have some tools to crimp the edges of the cake. I have piping tube to write on top of the cake. I have pastry brush to dust any crumbs off the cake. I got this from the supermarket. That's just candles for the birthday boy to blow out. I have a cake smoother to smoothen the top of the cake and the sides. You can also use the palm of your hand if you don't have this. I have scrapers, both metal scraper and plastic ones. I have a pair of scissors, and I have a piping bag. These nylon ones you can pick them from cake shops, or I can show you how to make a piping bag from a baking paper. I have some ribbons, a blue color one. You can use any color of your choice. And I have a tape measure just to guide me when I'm rolling out the icing, to know if I have the right size. This is basically all you need: a small brush and a palette knife and some icing sugar to dust when I need to roll out the icing. So once you have all the items you need all prepared ready, the next step is to start decorating the cake. The first step is to prepare the cake. So I'm placing the sponge cake onto the cake board. Ensure when you buy your cake board, is always advisable to use 2 inches bigger. So my cake is 8 inches and my cake board is 10 inches wide. So place the cake on top of the cake board, and if you want at this stage, you can use the cake board, the cake stand, to lift up the cake. You can use a turntable if you don't have this cake stand at home. So place it on a turntable, and then using a sharp knife, prepare the surface of the cake just to level it, to make sure it's even and not so that when we place the fondant on it, it's going to be level. So remove some of the cake, then slice the cake into 2. Hold it firmly with clean hands and slice it using a bread knife. Carefully lift up the half bit, place it back on your cake wire, and onto this, inside the cake, I'm going to base it with warmed jam. So I've microwaved my jam just to melt it a little bit. This is optional. You don't have to apply jam. I just want to have 2 layers of base in this cake to make it nice and yum. I remember when I was my children were still little, I used to enjoy making their birthday cakes for them. You know, so you can do this by yourself. It's not difficult. I've put the jam on the top of on the middle part of the cake. I'm going to also apply a little bit of the buttercream You don't have to put the buttercream, you can just leave it as it is. But I want a little bit of the buttercream for better flavor. So I'm going to spread it. Same way, similar way you spread butter on bread. So you put your buttercream, your butter icing, spread it, make it level and smooth. Then I'm going to place the other part back onto the top of the cake. If you don't want to do it this way, you can have 2 small sponge cakes. So use one as the base and use the other cake at the top. But I've just used 1 cake, so that's why I'm slicing into 2. So use the pastry brush to remove the crumbs from the cake board. The next thing I want to do is put the ganache on top of the cake for flavor. So I'm going to, it's been standing in the fridge for a little while now. So I'm going to whisk it until it's nice and fluffy. To use a palette knife to put some of this chocolate icing onto the cake. So just push the cake to move around in circles while you just lightly apply the chocolate. I'm also going to put it all around the cake on the sides as well. So just a little bit on the sides. While you push it around, you can move it from the top to the sides. I've applied all the chocolate icing, so I'm going to level up using a leveler. If you don't have this leveler, you can still use a knife or a palette knife. So just place it at an angle and slide the cake all around it. If you are using a palette knife or a knife, just place it and just gently move your cake against the knife or the palette knife. Push back the ones that is already moved onto the top. This sets very quickly, so you need to move quickly. Using a damp kitchen cleaning cloth, clean one, I've just taken this one out from the bag. Wet it with a little bit of water and slide it around your cake to ensure the side of the cake board is clean. The next step now is to place you can serve the cake with the ganache that added on as it is, but for the birthday cake that I'm making, I want to add on the royal and the ready roll icing. That's the fondant, the sugar paste, also called sugar paste. So place it onto a wok top and with the palm of the hands, knead it gently into a smooth ball. At this stage, if you want to have a colored cake, maybe a blue cake for instance, you use a toothpick to apply the sugar paste and color into your icing. So it's just taking a little bit of the icing and putting the toothpick of the color into it and work it through, then put it back onto the remainder of the icing and mix until you have the color you want. You can have pink, yellow, green, any color of your choice. But for this cake, I'm making a white plain cake and I'll be decorating with some blue ribbons. So keep kneading until you have nice and soft, pliable, easy to work with sugar paste. So I think it's nice and round and soft and pliable now. So I'm going to put a little bit of icing sugar, that's the powdered sugar, onto my wok top and using a rolling pin. If you don't have this type, you can just use the wood ones, the wood rolling pin. I'm going to use the nylon ones. You can also use a bottle, anything that you have, because there's no rule to the game. Just as long as you are able to roll out the icing into the desired shape. I must also say at this point that cakes come in different shapes. You can have round cakes, you can have square, numbers, letters, heart shapes, any shape of your choice, a teddy bear, different types of shapes. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to just make a simple round cake, and this is mainly for the young adults that follow our video online, so that when they start to have their young babies, they are able to be proud moms making their own first birthday cakes. And wishing you all the best in life. So roll the cake and slightly loosen it so it doesn't stick with the palm of the hand. Loosen it and move it around from time to time, dusting the bottom of the paste. Roll onto the size that you need for your cake. You have to be very careful not to make it too thin, and you also have to be sure that you have the correct size for your icing, and you can gauge that you have sufficient to cover both the top of the cake and the sides of the cake. So I'm going to smoothen the top using my smoother. If you don't have this at home, just dust your hands with a little bit of sugar icing, and with the flat part of your palm, gently massage the cake until you have a shiny, not too shiny, but smooth effect on your cake. Once you achieve that, place your rolling pin gently underneath the cake to pick up the rolling icing. Place gently onto your cake. And with the side back of your hand, push down the icing around the cake. Just slide it around, moving the turntable. Back to the smoother. Move the smoother gently over the cake to smoothen it. Then use a knife to trim round the edge of the icing, touching the side of the cake board to remove the excess sugar from the cake. Fry away the excess sugar paste, and using the back side of your hand, try and push down to level up nicely onto the cake board. Use the smoother to smoothen the sides until you are happy with the effect you have. The next step is to place the ribbon around your cake, and you can either use a tape measure to measure it, but I'm just going to put it round to determine the size I need. I'm going to use a scissors to cut the ribbon, ready to go around the cake. Now tidy up the surface that I'm using and carry on the decorating in a minute or two. The blue ribbon, and to place it onto the cake, I'm going to dampen a pastry brush with some water, not too much, just shake the water away. Gently use the water to wet the base of your cake. Then making sure you start from where you want to position the back of the cake. The one that is not so smooth is the best one. Ribbon onto the cake, all around it until you get to the back. Using the back of the hand, glue to the cake. The little water added would have softened the sugar paste and it will be sticky to take your ribbon on. So I've got the ribbon nicely applied. The next step is to crimp the size of the cake. You can either pipe it with the ganache icing or the royal icing, but I'm just going to make it easy. You can buy one of these crimping things from your cake shop, or you can even use your fingers, just like a pinch. Use 2 fingers and pinch all around your cake. So if you don't have this tool, just use your 2 fingers, the forefinger and the thumb, and just nicely walk around your cake. But I've got this, so I'm just going to use it to push down the top of the cake into the design I want. The next step to this cake decoration is to write on top of the cake, and for this I would need my sugar icing. You always have to keep your sugar icing covered. You can use a cling film or a damp wet cloth, because in winter time or depending on the weather, it dries so quickly. So I'm going to make sure I have the consistency that can pipe through my small piping tube. I've got a tiny one for writing letters. This royal icing is a bit thick, so I'm going to apply a little bit more of the egg white. This is the leftover from before, so I'm adding a little bit more. You can also loosen your royal icing with a little water if you don't have the egg white left over. So I'm going to mix until I have very soft peak hanging from the top of my spoon. Then this royal icing will be, I'll be adding a little bit of the color. I've got the baby blue, so I'll add a little bit of color into this using a toothpick. Add a little bit of the paste color. The paste color is better than the liquid one because you don't want to get your pastry or your icing too runny if you add the liquid one. So I'm just going to use this colored paste, nice baby blue color. So mix it until your desired effect. If you want it darker, add more in, but I think this is exactly as I want it. So I'm going to cover my paste while I show you how to make a piping bag. You can either use the ready-made nylon ones, just cut the tip off, and inside goes your piping tube, and then you place your icing sugar that is already colored into your desired color, and then push down into the tube. And this is how you hold it down and now write anything of your choice. I'm just going to write happy birthday onto this cake. But if you don't have these nylon ones, you can use your paper, cut some paper into a triangle, and with the part facing you, take it onto the end, the sharp bit. You are creating like a cone, and then take the other side to meet the cone at the top bit, fold it gently, take this across the back of the where you started and push it at the top to seal it into a tight bag. So that's how you get your paper one done. But I've got the liner one, so I'm just going to write happy birthday on the cake. Bag and lift it up a little bit and just write, touching down to the cake. It's the same way you would write onto a book, but lift it up slightly off from the cake and just drag up. Don't place the tube touching onto the cake. Lift it a little bit off the cake, touching down only when you're done. So I've got happy. I've got the happy written. So the next one is the birthday. Ensuring you are lifting up your icing. That's how it flows freely. Don't touch the tube onto the cake. So I've got happy birthday. You can also write the name of the celebrant, maybe happy birthday me or Bisi, those are my children's name, or Ife. Any name that you want, you write it down onto the cake. The next step that I'll be doing, you can do this, there's no rule to this game. You can create anything that you like, but I'm going to put the candles on now. I've got this one that says happy birthday boy. So I'm just going to use one stick out of it and push it slightly onto my cake. That's the simple birthday cake ready to go for your children's birthday. To keep this cake until needed, place it into a cake box or place it into a Tupperware box to keep it hydrated so it doesn't dry, and to keep it hygienic also from pests and dust. Happy decorating.